The 2025 NFL Draft has come to an end, and the Lions added 7 new players into the mix. What we do know for sure is that Brad Holmes will stick to his plan. Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Johnny Gaz. Thank you for returning for another video. This one will review the Lions draft picks in detail. We'll go through each individual pick. We'll talk about the Brad Holmes strategy and ultimately look at the big picture. The biggest question is, are the Lions a better team today than they were prior to the draft? Let's go. Heading into this draft, the Lions bolstered one of the strongest rosters in all of the NFL. And they're really drafting from a place of strength rather than a place of desperation. Brad Holmes' strategy hasn't really been to draft for need, but really to take the best player available. So the question was, would he move up in the first round and get the very much needed edge rusher that so many pundits and experts and influencers and YouTube content creators said that they needed? Would they move back because of the depth across the defense of this particular draft? Well, they decided to stick right at pick 28, and they drafted defensive tackle out of Ohio State, Tyleik Williams. Now, he is considered the best run-stuffing defensive tackle in this entire draft. And if you think about it, that's really their biggest need, considering they will be without Alim McNeill for a good portion of this 2025 season to start. Williams is a natural run-stuffing tackle, and he's very much been compared to Alim McNeill. He's a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, and he may even be a little bit more athletic. He's a real smart player, and I think he'll fit into the Lions culture well. On the opposite end, he really needs some work as far as his pass rushing skills. So he's not going to come in and add to the pressure, add to the sack rate, and things that we felt the Lions truly needed this offseason. Now, another question arises that they have 10 defensive tackles now on this particular roster, and how many will they ultimately end up keeping? We know they brought in some free agents. They obviously have guys recovering from injury. So the real question will be, what do they do ultimately with this roster and all of these defensive tackles? Brad Holmes and the Lions do make a move in the second round as they move up 3 spots with the Denver Broncos. They give up pick 60 and pick 130, acquiring pick 57 and pick 230. And with that 57th pick, the Lions select interior offensive guard Tate Ratledge out of Georgia. Tate Ratledge has the look and feel of a Lions gritty player. I mean, he describes himself as a dirtbag, and he certainly looks the part, but he's huge, 6'6", 308, and he's a mauler. He's great in the run game. He'll fit with the athleticism of the Lions offensive line very well. And again, this is a day one guy that will step in and compete for a starting role. Remember, the Lions lost Kevin Zeitler this offseason. They brought him in last season to fill in that role at guard, and he left. So they had a hole, and they really did not replace that role. So they had Graham Glasgow, who is 33 years old, and then the young Christian Mahogany, who only has 2 starts to his name. So they had to do something on the interior, and this is a guy that can come in and start, or at least compete for a starting role day one. I honestly really liked the first 2 picks of this draft, and although I was nervous because they didn't address what I thought was the biggest need, the edge position, I could see sort of the picture here. Having the defensive tackle without Alim McNeill just makes so much sense to me, and although they may have been able to get him stepping back, and they may have technically reached for that pick, you don't want to lose out. And we know the Brad Holmes strategy. If they like a guy, if they have a first-round grade on them, they're not going to not get that player, and they did that in the first round with Williams. Well, in the second round, I just think they get the ultimate Dan Campbell offensive lineman. I think he fits the scheme very well. He fits the culture. He'll be the perfect guy to compete and really make the best out of the guard position there for the Lions. Lions become movers and shakers in round 3, and they may have made the biggest reach of their 2025 NFL draft here as they acquire picks 70 and 182 and a 6th round in 2026 from the Jaguars. But in return, they have to give up pick 102, which was their 3rd round pick, and then 2 3rd-round picks in 2026. So that's a lot of capital. With that pick 70, they decide to take the big-bodied wide receiver out of Arkansas, Isaac TeSlaa. That certainly is a lot of draft capital to give up not to get a quality edge defender that we thought at this point the Lions had to get. Instead, they bring in a wide receiver that has a lot of upside. Although he didn't have a ton of production at Arkansas, you can see the talent there. He has an elite RAS score, similar to Tate Ratledge, and that seems to be a common theme for the Lions. Very smart players, very athletic players. Again, he's 6'4", 215 pounds, and he seems to fit the bill to replace Tim Patrick down the road, but he also adds an element of sort of a bigger slot wide receiver, which the Lions don't have currently in their offense. This is a kid who grew up in Hudsonville, Michigan. He's been a Lions fan his entire life, and this was sort of a lifelong dream. It's a dream come true. What a cool story. And it's very clear that the Lions wanted him. To give up 2 third-round picks in 2026 makes it very clear that this was a guy that they targeted. He is a big-time blocker, and you know the Lions' motto of no block, no rock, and he's going to fit that bill very well. You can look at this pick in one of two ways. On the negative side, this is a ton of capital to give up for a wide receiver. Not really an area of need. You got Tim Patrick back, and this is kind of a project. He hasn't proven himself. He's developing as a wide receiver, and you're expecting a lot out of a third-round pick that you give up so much in. On the positive side, it's something the Lions really haven't had. And it seems to be another culture fit and a guy that's willing to come in and compete and work hard and fit to what the Lions are trying to do. It's also something that they don't need immediate. So he does have time to develop, learn the game. You have a ton of good pieces, hardworking guys in front of him. My assumption is that Tim Patrick would love to bolster or fester a rookie behind him. So it may be a great situation all around for the Lions. Lions left day 1 and 2 without selecting an edge defender. And I think a lot of fans started to truly worry. You start to question the other picks, I think, because of that. I certainly took a step back, had to make sure I slept on all of these picks before you start to judge them or grade them way too soon. The truth is, all of the experts out there seem to panic when certain teams don't go with their trend. And the Lions are one of those teams. They have been graded as one of the worst drafts here in 2025 because they're not looking necessarily at other people's value charts. They have their own value chart, and that is what they stick to. Lions opened the last day of the draft in the 5th round, moving with the New England Patriots. They acquired pick 171 from New England by giving up 182 and 228. With pick 171 in the 5th round, they selected another interior offensive lineman, a guard out of LSU, Miles Frazier. And I think this was a great value pick. I was surprised that this guy fell. A 4-year starter at an SEC school like LSU. Really a fantastic guard. He's got some work to do in pass protection, but he is a true mauler in the run game as well. And I think, again, fits the Lions' culture. I'm, again, really surprised that he fell, and the Lions took advantage of that in round 5. With the selection of Ratledge in round 2, this sort of allows Frazier to fit in immediately as a backup offensive lineman. And the nice thing is that at LSU, not only did he play the right guard position, but he's also seen time at both tackle spots. He's been all over. Outside of center, he's really played all of the offensive line. So he'll be able to learn behind quality offensive linemen, not only to bolster his own game, but he'll be able to fill in all across the offensive line in case there's any injury concerns in 2025. This is another position group now that's starting to build up to the point where not everyone's going to be able to make the roster. At guard alone, Coyote Awasika, Netane Muti, guys that are going to have to really battle to even make this roster at this point. So the question is, did the Lions and Brad Holmes waste some assets and capital, drafting into position groups where you might not have guys that will make the team? Now, I do think, obviously, Miles Frazier, Tate Ratledge will make the team, but guys that they still were working with and had faith with, Awasika, so on and so forth, now are battling for roster positions. Could they then have used these draft picks in other areas, edge, for instance, to help their defense? It seemed like a long wait to get to the 6th round where the Lions were picking at 196, and they stuck at that pick, and they finally select an edge rusher. This time it is Ahmed Hassanein out of Boise State. Ahmed's story is really amazing. He comes from California, then moved to Egypt at a very young age, learned English later on in life, really didn't start playing football till he was 16. This is only his 5th year of competitive professional football. But even in his limited time, he's shown that he has the spirit and will that's second to none. I mean, this guy is truly intense. If you've seen that conversation that he had with Dan Campbell when they told him he was going to be drafted. I mean, he basically told Dan Campbell he would die for him on the field. I mean, this guy bleeds football in such a short period of time. Now, over the past 2 seasons as a starter, think about this. He registered 115 pressures, 101 tackles, 34 tackles for loss, 24 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. That's in 2 seasons as a starter in very limited time as a football player. His motor is very much like Aiden Hutchinson, but he's extremely raw, right? And so this is why a guy drops to the 6th round, and the Lions are taking a chance on him. But I think his work ethic, again, another culture fit, a hardworking guy, is going to fit the locker room really well, and is really a Dan Campbell type football player. On the other end of this, though, again, he is such a raw developmental talent that it's not going to give you the immediate impact that I think a lot of people wanted to come out of this draft. It's not the running partner to Aiden Hutchinson that we're going to hit the ground with in 2025. That's going to have to come from other areas. Recovering defensive players, additions to the defensive line, defensive tackle, the defensive backfield. And you have emerging superstars, Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, guys that really look to step up even more in 2025. That's where it's going to come from. But this edge draft isn't going to be the final piece here early on. This is a guy that's going to have to work into getting more snaps, earn the trust of the coaching staff. And again, as a 6th round pick, you're hoping he has a very high ceiling. But again, it's not giving you, I think, what a lot of Lions fans wanted is that immediate 1st, 2nd round impact guy. But I'm excited for this because I think, again, it's a guy that the organization can mold and mend. He's going to learn behind quality defensive players. And it sounds like a guy that's willing to work for his supper. And I think that's the kind of guy that will strive in this Lions system. Lions then make a run on Georgia players in the 7th round of the draft. At pick 230, they select safety Dan Jackson. He was originally a walk-on at Georgia and earned the starting role over time there. And he is a very willing tackler. He's played all safety positions, so he'll fit a depth role for the Lions. But certainly the way he'll make this roster is by being able to contribute on special teams. Again, being that willing tackler will certainly help his cause. Then at pick 244, the Lions go with another wide receiver, this time slot guy, Dominic Lovett, who has very good speed. He ran a 4.40 at the combine. He's very productive and over time maybe could develop into a potential replacement for Khalif Raymond. In the case of Lovett, he's really going to have to focus on the special teams aspect. He was a great gunner at Georgia and I think could fit that role as well with the Lions. Otherwise, I think he will ultimately struggle to make the roster in what will be a very condensed wide receiver room. We know the Lions took Isaac TeSlaa in the 3rd round, and they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously, Jamison Williams, Tim Patrick, and Khalif Raymond. So they're solidified on their 1 through 4. And the way that these other guys make the team and ultimately get any sort of snaps offensively is to earn their place on these special teams roles. And although the Lions roster is quite full at the moment, they did bring in some undrafted free agents, and they're willing and able to sign with any team if they are not drafted here. Lions brought in a pair of running backs, Anthony Tyus out of Ohio, as well as Kai Robichaux out of Boston College. Also a tight end. The Lions actually signed some money to Caden Preekscorn out of Ole Miss, $60,000 guaranteed plus a $15,000 signing bonus. And maybe the most interesting signing coming out of this, wide receiver Jackson Meeks out of Syracuse. They gave him $200,000 guaranteed dollars. Why would they do that, do you ask? Well, he's related to Zadarius Smith. So does that tie-in mean ultimately that there is in the works a potential signing between the Lions and bringing back Zadarius Smith? Lions also brought in wide receiver Jacoby Keeney-James out of UMass, 2 offensive linemen, Mason Miller out of North Dakota State. You might have heard that name before. $20,000 guaranteed salary plus a $10,000 signing bonus on that one, as well as Leaf Fontenot, Arizona State, a lineman there. They brought in another edge rusher, Keith Cooper Jr. out of Houston, cornerback Gavin Holmes out of Texas, and safety Ian Kennelly out of Grand Valley State. What do you think of this 2025 NFL draft for the Detroit Lions? Do you agree with Brad Holmes' strategy? Do you think he did a good job with all of these picks, or could they have used these assets in a better way? Are you most upset that they didn't get that edge rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson that they so have been seeking? Let me know down in those comments below. I'm interested to hear from you. Spent a lot of time during the offseason discussing what the Lions' ultimate needs were heading into this 2025 NFL draft. And I would have told you heading into this that they had to get an edge rusher. For 2 off seasons, I would have told you they had to get an edge rusher. And I'm not saying that I agree with all of the draft picks that were made here in 2025. I don't know if giving up multiple third-round picks for a big-bodied wide receiver that you really didn't need necessarily this season was the right call. But I like that player. I think he fits the Lions perfectly, and I think down the road that could be a big piece here. So I don't disagree with the man. But you have to wrap your head around the Brad Holmes strategy. What I want, what the fan wants, what the media wants or expects is not what Brad Holmes is going to do. He made it very clear in his post-draft press conference that he doesn't care what I think. He doesn't care what you think. He only cares what they think. The organization, the Lions. That's the strategy they're going to stick to, and you can agree with it or not agree with it. I'm a Lions fan at heart. I want the Lions to win a Super Bowl as badly as anyone. So I don't care what the strategy is. If it gets them the Lombardi Trophy, then so be it. I like many of the picks that were made in this draft. I'm not sitting here and trying to sell you this is an A-plus draft. I don't think it was. I think they reached several times. The Lions have proven they've reached over the course even of this new era. Giovanni Manu, Broderick Martin, Colby Sorsdahl. Now, in the case of Manu, you got to give him some more time, but there's evidence there that Brad Holmes will reach, and it doesn't always work, but a lot of the times it does. So I'm going to give him and the organization the benefit of the doubt. I really like the first-round pick, Tyleik Williams. I think it fills a short-term need as well as a long-term picture need. They have to develop a defensive line. It doesn't matter if it was an edge or a defensive tackle. They need pressure. They need to be able to fill gaps. They need to be able to stop the run. They need to be able to mix and match pieces there. And Tyleik Williams is one of the best defensive tackle pieces in all of college football last year, and they got him in this draft. In round 2, I like the follow-up pick in solidifying and reinvesting your offensive line. You didn't fill the hole that was Zeitler, so they had to do it in other ways. And I don't know if Graham Glasgow and Christian Mahogany were your ultimate solutions. So not only did they draft Tate Ratledge, but they followed it up with Miles Frazier. So now you have 2 guys who are also familiar with each other. They're going to feed off of each other and ultimately create such great competition in the guard room that it will drive your offensive line for years to come. Ahmed Hassanein is a small representation of the Lions culture and exactly what the Lions have been since 2021 to today is hardworking, gritty, 110% at all times, and will earn everything that they get. And that's the type of player that he is. And that's why they were willing to wait and they were okay with not reaching for an edge, just taking one to take one. They have a long-term plan. They're drafting culture guys, their guys. And Ahmed Hassanein, that edge, is one of their guys. They follow it up in the 7th round with 2 big-time program players. They actually ended up drafting 3 Georgia players in this 2025 draft, and that's a proven strategy. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles. Dan Jackson and Dominic Lovett are not going to come in and be difference makers, and they're going to have to truly compete to make the roster. So I'm not going to sit here and sell you that those are guys that are going to make a difference here. But they're big-time players from big-time programs, and they're ultimately going to foster a big-time program here and culture here with the Lions. Lions teams of years past would have taken that edge at the top of the draft because they would have felt they had to, out of desperation. This Lions team, this Lions organization doesn't have to do anything. They're in a place of power. Now, I won't grade this draft. I don't think it's fair to grade drafts right up front. I didn't do it last year. I won't do it this year. I think you have to allow players to marinate, see how they fit into the system and the bigger picture. I'll tell you, though, I like this draft. I don't love it, but the truth is I think the Lions stuck to their plan. And the ultimate question is, are the Lions a better team today than they were prior to this draft? I say yes. Why? Because they reinvested in their ultimate strength, this offensive line. The Lions offense has carried the day the past several seasons. When the Lions were losing all of these defensive players, they were able to lean on their high-powered running game, Jared Goff, their wide receivers, everything offensively. Well, it all starts up front on the offensive line. They lost Kevin Zeitler. They didn't refill that need. They have an aging Graham Glasgow. You have to reinvest in the offensive line. It makes your quarterback better. It makes your running back better. It makes your team better. So they took 2 guards that can ultimately come in and compete for starting positions. They will push the rest of the offensive line in that position specifically to be better. And no, they didn't go out and get that huge piece opposite Aiden Hutchinson. They brought back returning guys, Marcus Davenport, Josh Pascal. They're going to move other pieces around. There's even talk of Zadarius Smith working back into the mix. But the truth is, they added pieces defensively at defensive tackle and the defensive backfield. They now drafted Tyleik Williams, who can plug and play on the run game. He's going to eat up double teams. He's going to allow Aiden Hutchinson to work his magic. They can play so many things now off of the pieces they have, and they've bought the time for Liam McNeil to recover from this injury and then reinsert himself back into this defense. The edge piece they finally got in the 6th round, Ahmed Hassanein, is not going to be the immediate answer and may not even be the long-term solution at edge, but the type of player he is, the work ethic he will bring, the human being, that character that he will bring to the Lions locker room will be the perfect fit. And it's a small piece to the bigger picture here for the Lions organization. The 2 7th-round picks, again, guys with hard work ethics that have earned what they've been given to this point, and they will continue to do so as they try to earn a roster spot here with the Detroit Lions. The Lions are a better team today because they're able to look into the future, see past the immediacy and return of right now and what needs to happen down the road for this sustained success to continue. Drafting a wide receiver in the 3rd round, giving up multiple picks to obtain a player that you had to have in wide receiver Isaac TeSlaa is a representation of what this organization is and is going to be down the road. They know they have Tim Patrick for this season, but they know they're going to need a piece as a replacement down the road, but they also know they can use Isaac in other areas to build their roster now. So it's a view at the short term as well as the long term. I believe the Lions are a better team today because they understand their strength. They have unwillingness to go away from their culture and an unwillingness to listen to the outside noise. They understand who they are and where they want to go. As a Lions fan, this is everything I've ever wanted, is my organization to be confident and to show the results. And that's exactly what's happening. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this was the greatest draft of all time. There were other players on the board when the Lions selected that I would have told you they should have taken. But the truth is, I like the players they selected. I see the bigger picture, and the Lions have a plan. I ultimately believe the Lions have the best roster in the NFL. Some of these position groups are going to be tough to make a roster spot, and that's exactly where you want to be as an NFL organization. The Lions are in a power position, and they have everything they need to make a run at a Super Bowl in 2025. Thank you guys so much for sticking around for another video. If you dig the vibe here at Johnny Gaz Sports, make sure to hit that like button. It's the best free way to help out the channel. I'd also love it if you consider subscribing. I want to say thank you so much to those who have come along for the ride already. We've now surpassed 3,000 subscribers, thanks to you guys. If you hit the notify bell, that will ensure you don't miss any future videos. I have a membership option here on the channel, and if you want to check out any or all of my free content, hit me up here or at any of my socials at Johnny Gaz Sports. Again, thank you for your time, but more than anything else, make sure to take care of yourself. And that mental health, it's more important than anything else, and I want to make sure you come back and see me on future videos. Have a great week or weekend ahead. Go Lions.